It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was a tale of two cities, Hong Kong and Barcelona. When hundreds of thousands of people protested on the streets of Hong Kong, they were democracy protesters, freedom fighters only. Thousands of Western journalists flocked thousands of miles all the way to Hong Kong to tell us as much as the shoe size and all the family details of the leaders of the Hong Kong protests. The blatant bias in favour of the Hong Kong protesters can be compared and contrasted to the reaction of the Western media and the virtual total silence of Western politicians when it comes to the hundreds of thousands of people in Catalonia protesting about a century, 100 years of prison time for 9 democratically elected Catalan politicians for the grave crime of organising an unofficial referendum. People putting an X on a piece of paper with a pencil. We're not talking about terrorism or violence. We're talking about a mock referendum. 100 years in jail. For the avoidance of doubt, I'm not a supporter of Catalan separatism, but I'm even less of a supporter of the brutal repression of peaceful protesters in Catalonia and the imprisonment of political opponents in what is supposed to be a democratic society. The British media, British political class, has been absolutely silent about the outrages taking place every day in Barcelona, in Catalonia. The European Union, that great fortress of freedom and democracy, is struck dumb by what's happening in one of its most important member states. Whilst the entire world has striven might and main to turn the Hong Kong protests into a ramp against China. And the reasons are obvious. They want to weaken China. Any subject will do, from the Dalai Lama through the Muslim question in Xinjiang, through Falun Gong, anything that they can find to divide and weaken China and slow its progress. If ever there was an example of the blatant way in which Western media acted as a tool for Western foreign policy, it's in the comparison of this tale of two cities. These people have the gall to denounce other broadcasters as state broadcasters, as biased broadcasters, when they themselves have become, if they were not always so, merely a weapon in the hands of the ruling elites in their own societies. What we have is what Dr. Johnson called the grimmest dictatorship of them all, the dictatorship of the prevailing orthodoxy. Therefore, Hong Kong protesters good, Barcelona protesters bad. When the Hong Kong protesters took over the airport, the only airport in Hong Kong, bringing commerce, industry, trade and tourism virtually overnight to a halt, well, the Western media were throwing flowers at them. And the Hong Kong police not only did not respond with violence, but were met with violence from the protesters. But still the politicians and the media supported the hijacking of the national airport in Hong Kong. When the protesters in Barcelona marched on the Barcelona airport, they were met with a wave of brutality by the Spanish security forces, and the media had nothing, absolutely nothing to say about it. And as for the yellow vests in France, don't get me started. They don't even exist. Dozens of people have had their eyeballs shot out. 10 people have lost their hands in the hail of rubber bullets, truncheons, CS gas, and the frankly unparalleled ferocity of the French CRS anti-riot police. A tale of two cities, it could be a tale of 3 cities or more. The point is, George Orwell, you should be alive this day to see what's happening in the 1984 that 2019 has become.